The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Stephen Cash here once again with my co-host Tulio Siragusa and our special guest today. So, many small business owners sometimes think of bookkeeping as something they have to do after the other work of business is done. You focus on the customers, the operations, your sales, your employees, vendors, all aspects of growth. And then the books become something to probably clean up later at that point after not focusing on it for a while. But, numbers reveal priorities, pressure points, risks, habits, opportunities, and whether the business is truly supporting the purpose it might have been created to serve. And so today we are diving into purpose-driven bookkeeping and what that means in terms of stewardship, financial clarity, and how bookkeeping can become a system for leading with greater intention. So I'm really looking forward to this, looking through the lens of this. And Tulio, introduce our special guest today.
My pleasure. Our guest today is Mark Tuggle, PhD. Dr. Mark Tuggle. He's the CEO of Telos Bookkeeping. Telos is a purpose-driven bookkeeping firm helping growing businesses gain clarity, precision, and strategic insight through financial record keeping, reconciliation, payroll support, reporting, and, of course, tax preparation support. Their approach is grounded in the idea that bookkeeping should do more than document past transactions. It should help business owners understand their numbers, make smarter decisions, and stay aligned with their long-term purpose. Mark, welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast. I've always believed the numbers, know your business. Don't know your numbers, don't know your business.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Mark, so Telos uses the phrase bookkeeping with your purpose in mind. What does that purpose-driven bookkeeping mean to you?
Sure. I know that I feel safe to say all business owners, none of them went into business because they wanted to do bookkeeping. They had some kind of purpose for starting whatever business or practice or firm, whatever the entrepreneurial endeavor is. And there's purpose behind that. Either it's a lifestyle purpose or some vision, someone they want to help, something they want to accomplish, something they want to bring to market. The idea behind bookkeeping with your purpose in mind is how do we use the bookkeeping system and processes to support that purpose? It's a means to contribute to that ultimate purpose you have for your business and ultimately for your life as a business owner, as an individual, as a human, contributing to the good in our society and our world. That's what I mean by purpose-driven bookkeeping. What's your ultimate purpose? Telos in Greek means ultimate purpose, and we want to align your bookkeeping efforts and accounting efforts with that ultimate purpose.
Now, there are many business owners, Mark, who feel stressed and possibly even shame around their books. So how do you help those owners build healthier relationship with their financials?
Well, I think there are a few phases to that. The first one is to let them know it's not an uncommon feeling emotionally for people to look at their books, to put off working on their books, to admit out loud they don't know what they don't know about their financials. And that's a big part of what I do, is let the business owner know how far ever behind you are or how messy they are, or if you don't even have books, it's recoverable. This is something that we can work together on and get you to a place of current, accurate health when it comes to financials, bookkeeping, record keeping, and starting to shift to use those accounting information proactive. They're waiting for you to tackle, and you're coming up with every excuse not to tackle it.
So I think for a lot of businesses, I know for us, when we're doing our marketing, we really try and think about the purpose of that business, try and drill into that higher purpose. And a lot of businesses, they've never really even kind of gone there. Do you have to, is that part of your process, is trying to really, kind of have that dialogue with them, and figure that out first? Or, obviously you're probably auditing the business and cleaning up all the mess that, has been kind of neglected. But once you get into it, is that really part of kind of your approach?
It really is. Typically, I'm engaging with a client because they're behind or in crisis, or something went wrong with their financials and they need help. But once we put out that fire, I want to help those business owners know these aren't static, fixed kinds of reports. There's not just one way to talk about or look at your financials. And so the better I can understand what you're trying to do. Are you growth minded? Are you in a sustaining mode? Are you trying to expand either service offerings or get loans or investors? Are you trying to sell? All that information can be used for us to tailor and customize your financials and financial reporting in a way to help you put your best foot forward with the other audiences that are looking at your books, whether that's just your tax preparer or your banker, potential investors, other partners, all of those things. We can help business owners with that.
What sort of changes when you're viewing your bookkeeping through purpose? Like, if I've never really done that before, I mean, as a small business owner, now I'm kind of thinking about, you've kind of given me maybe this North Star of some type, right? Or something that I'm trying to focus on. What's things start to change with my decision making?
I think what starts to change is that you are part of what I do from just an education standpoint, helping clients understand their numbers, understand the reports. Let's just take one part of one report, just the revenue section of a profit and loss statement, of an income statement. Business owners can use that to help them understand which streams of revenue are the most profitable for them. For instance, a lot of business owners think, oh, well, there's just one line and it says revenue. They don't understand that we have the ability to break down your revenue reporting into your various streams of revenue. I have clients who just want to separate recurring revenue versus one-time revenue, or revenue from certain kinds of product lines versus other product lines. These are business conversations that typically aren't happening with a bookkeeper, and business owners don't typically look at their income statement to see their performance in that kind of arena. But these are the kinds of purpose-driven things we can do with our clients.
I'm curious what happens when a business owner kind of understands their basic numbers, begins to make a discipline of it, begins to see the strategic value of it, how it can help them in decision making around their business. I wonder what happens emotionally. What are some of the things you see, the impact it has even personally on a business owner when they kind of have that aha moment where they feel like, I now understand what's going on in my business? What's that like?
Well, often I think the first feeling is a feeling of relief, because a lot of times the crisis, the challenge that the business owner is presenting me with is a question like, I don't know where my money's going. I don't know if I'm making money. I don't know if I'm profitable. There are these questions that are core business owner questions. And if we can start to address those, then there's a sense of relief. There's a sense back in my research days, I did a lot of work on self-directed learning, and there's this concept of self-efficacy. It's not quite confidence. It's the thought of, it's that belief that you can actually do something. And when a business owner starts to believe that he or she can actually take control of the business finances, can actually shift gears from this is something that sits over in the corner and haunts me to something that's front and center as I'm making tactical and strategic business decisions. That's a whole mindset shift. The first piece is relief. The next piece, I think, is possibility. Okay, what can this help me do next?
Thinking about kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something. Okay, we're getting through those earlier stages, right? Now I'm feeling more comfortable about my business. And say my business is around, I want like maybe we've got sustainable products or something, and we really want to kind of start articulating more of our higher purpose throughout our business. How can bookkeeping kind of reveal whether a business is aligned with its purpose?
I just think back to that. Well, in circles that I've been in, there was an old saying, if you want to know what someone values, take a look at their checkbook. So helping a business owner see where the money is going, and not just see where it's going, but in proportion to where it's going in other places. For instance, I always want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to take care of my people. Like I pay them probably above the market rate. So when I look at the percentage of my expenses on personnel versus my expenses on advertising or software or other kinds of expenses that all of us as business owners have, how do those ratios look? Do they reflect my values? I'm kind of a techie geek, and I have a tendency to overspend on the next cool software. So I have to keep myself in check, because if that tendency to want the latest and greatest in tech, every business owner has to make choices. And I want to make sure, well, if my priority really is taking care of my team, that becomes a filter now that I'm making decisions about where I'm spending discretionary dollars. And once a business owner is in a stable and growing place, there's a lot of decision making with regard to discretionary dollars.
On the show, we like to talk about Bliss as building love and the scalable systems, and we haven't got into how you can do this with bookkeeping. So what kind of bookkeeping systems or practices or processes can help build like kindness, care, compassion into what businesses do?
I think once a business owner has confidence that the books reflect the reality of where the money's coming from and where it's going, that next step is to, like you talk about, build systems that ensure the money is flowing in the right directions, in the right proportions. For instance, just thinking about, we talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, and we look at profitability and debt ratios, and these are all business metrics, but business owners have the freedom to instantiate other kinds of systems. I have a client who is very hardcore on the profit first, and he has like 8 different bank accounts, and this money's going into that bucket, and this money's going into that bucket, and this money's going into that bucket. And then what's left is my operational dollars. And so if there's a cause that the business says it cares about, what is the system that draws money out of the revenue bucket and into the bucket that supports that cause? And if business owners aren't intentional about that, it doesn't happen. A business owner who says, oh, we give 10% to this local charity, or we give 1% and 1% of our time, or whatever those things are, if there's not a system to support it, then it doesn't happen. And bookkeepers can help you do that. If you don't know how to create a new account, or you need to open a different bank account or a savings or a money market, let's get that connected into your books. Let's show how the money's moving. Let's set up some rules to automatically move money into these accounts. Let's make sure that when we create a report, these things are highlighted so you can see very quickly and easily, all right, this thing that I care about is happening. It's being funded, etc.
Thinking about that a little bit further, I know there's probably a lot of businesses I want to do this thing, but I don't have the money to do it right now. I'm sure you're knee deep into, okay, let's figure that out. Let's get a trajectory, a planning. Is that something you're often kind of doing or figuring out that path?
It certainly can be. And a lot of times that has to do with not am I making enough money, but do I understand the expenses that I have and what potentially is out of proportion? So having a process to review expenses, it's interesting. A 3%, I'm trying to think of the exact number. I think it's a 5% reduction in expenses is equivalent in terms of bottom line dollars to it's something crazy like a 30% increase in revenue. Because when you think about revenue, some portion of it is variable expense. So as you sell more widgets, you have more production costs for those widgets. But when you're able to reduce costs, that goes directly to your bottom line available dollars. And so a small savings is equivalent to a large increase in revenue. And people don't think that. They just think, grow, add more revenue, get more sales, which of course healthy growing businesses want to do. But if we're really careful about examining those expenses, we can more often free up dollars more quickly to do other things that business owners want to do that orient them towards their purpose.
Now, we've often talked about how many companies will just kind of say like, well, we just do insurance. So we're not here to change the world and make the world better. We just do this, right? And similarly, Telos provides services, just financial record keeping, payroll support, billable support, bill pay support, reconciliation, reporting, tax preparation support, sales tax processing. Now, how do these practical systems support the bigger purpose for business owners? How, you touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious on like, how can business owners elevate their thinking around, I need to do the bookkeeping, it's just bookkeeping, and begin to see it as a vehicle to get aligned with their purpose? I'm curious how you help them with that, because you're yourself a very purpose-driven. We'll touch on that in a little bit when we talk about purpose in the next segment. But I'd be curious, how are businesses having that ha-ha moment where they're like, I could do more stuff now that I really want to do? Tell us about that.
Sure. I think there are a few different pieces. One piece of it is the practically freeing up time for a business owner. Many of us, especially on the small business side, we wear multiple hats. And in a perfect world, as a business owner, I'm only doing the part that only I can do. I'm doing the part that's going to maximize the benefit to my organization, to the purpose that my organization exists for. And a lot of times these financial processes, for instance, I have a client, we just had a conversation last week. He said, hey, quarterly, I have to file a city and state $0 sales tax return. I don't do any taxable sales work, but I have to file this $0 tax return. And I hate it. And I just said to him, why don't you let me do that for you? And he said, that would be wonderful. So part of it is practically helping the business owner not do things that suck the life out of them so that they have the energy and the time to do the things that energize them, to do the things that they started the business to do in the first place. Historically, I've worked with a lot of medical providers, dentists, veterinarians, surgeons. They want to practice medicine. They don't necessarily even want to run a business, but they understand that that's a part of the requirement of being in medical practice and having the freedom that they want, the independence that they want, as opposed to being a W-2 employee. And so practically speaking, I can take some of those things off of their plate. Secondly, if they really are at a place now where they understand where the money is, where it's going, how it comes in, what's available, it gives them the freedom to make plans. And that a lot of times that is just centered around, again, kind of their purpose. If this is a lifestyle business, I'm not interested in growing any more than I need to support my lifestyle. So what are the things that we can take off your plate? What are the things that we can automate to give you the maximum freedom and flexibility to enjoy your lifestyle? So that's the way I want to get business owners thinking. What can they delegate? What can they automate? And then what information can I provide to them to help them decide what's most important for the next step for them or for their business?
You know, when Tulio kind of rattled off the different services, and then you mentioned like the local tax, quarterly report or whatever they have to file. As a business owner, I can see so many people, they're passionate about this one thing that they've gotten into business to do, but now they're having to deal with these sort of realities as their small business starts to grow. And then that's where it kind of, to them, it's like, this is not what I enjoy doing at all. Like you mentioned, like the doctors doesn't want to be dealing with all these things. How do you help them navigate, like, these are the numbers that are most important to you. I know you're overwhelmed with all your business, and make that, bring that to the front and center for them so that they can kind of continue carrying on and getting that passion back to what they were, when they originally started the business.
Well, sometimes it's just saying, let's just look at these 2 or 3 numbers for this next season. Maybe we've identified you've got to spend less. And so we're just going to focus on this category of expenses, kind of the office overhead expenses. Let's not worry about all the rest of the stuff. The money's coming in, the bills are getting paid. Let's see if we can make progress in one little area. But another thing that because it's just maybe just my kind of tech background and interest, sometimes it's getting them into a different kind of system, like a different payroll provider or a different point of sale system that we can help them set up that will do more work for them, which means they don't have to spend. So to run payroll, can I run payroll in 10 minutes instead of 45 minutes? It could be as simple as, well, in this payroll system you can, and in this payroll system you can't. So sometimes it's helping them identify, do they have the best tech stack? And I know that's in many ways outside of the scope of bookkeeping, but it's a part of my background and interest. So that's just something that's a conversation I love to have with business owners.
Now, we know in conscious capitalism, leaders are asked to build businesses that serve more than profits alone. And even the original paperwork, when you file for business, used to require businesses to actually put a purpose behind their business beyond the profits. That has changed since then, which is a shame. But how does bookkeeping support that kind of leadership as well?
Yeah, that's great. Part of it, again, it comes back to the time. Does the business owner have the time to do the things that they care about? And then having knowing the truth about your books allows you to steward those resources, I think, more effectively. When business owners are just in reactive mode, when they're behind on paying their taxes, when the cash flow is in an unmanageable kind of place, they can't think about what kind of good can I do with my time, talent, and treasure, because my time is consumed with worrying over the treasure that feels like doesn't exist, even though I'm selling things and making money. So that there's that mind space when a business owner has confidence that when they look at the numbers, they know they're accurate. When they look at the few key performance indicators, all right, I'm profitable. I'm hitting the margins that I want to hit. I'm not overspending over here like I used to be. All of that frees up mind space. It frees up emotional energy then to take the time to say, all right, this is amazing, because now my family's going to go on this week-long mission trip that we had been hoping to do, or my business is going to sponsor some local event because I not only have the dollars to do it now, but I have the time where I can be present and engage in my community in a way that I always hoped I'd be able to do. Those are the kinds of things that can happen when business owners' financials are in order.
All right, we've got an audience question. Let's go ahead and bring that up here. Can you share how AI is changing the way people handle bookkeeping, and what are your thoughts on it?
I can, and we might have to come back for another whole show on that topic. I, as a bookkeeping firm, I use AI every single day. I use it primarily in terms of internal management of operations, things like just workflow things, emails, client communication, prospect communication, the kinds of things that probably most businesses are or should be using AI for. There's a lot of, I am competing with firms that claim to do AI bookkeeping. AI does all the bookkeeping, no humans. I'm not at that place. I don't think I'll ever be fully at that place, even if I have AI doing basic data entry or categorization, because there are, certainly in bookkeeping, there are some repetitive, rule-based checklist types of tasks that can be done potentially by AI. But having experienced accountants actually reviewing and ensuring data is accurate, because I think we all know AI can make things up as well. And I'm just not comfortable that I have that kind of risk-taking capability when it comes to my clients' books, because of everything that I just talked about. I have to know, and my clients have to know, that their information is accurate and current, and there's no funny business going on with their bookkeeping. But it is a reality in the bookkeeping world, just like it is in so many other small businesses. But I have that added challenge of potentially competing with businesses that are trying to say, AI can do all of your bookkeeping soup to nuts. You don't really need any people to do it for you.
Thank you. And thank you for the audience for your questions. We are live, so if you have a question, just type it in the comments wherever you're watching. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, and on Twitch, just put it in the comments and we will feature. So we got another question from LinkedIn. And the question is, Mark, who is your ideal client? The business owner you love to work with? That's a great question.
That's great. The business owner I love to work with is a business owner who wants to do the thing that he or she loves to do and wants to work with trusted partners to do the things that the business owner isn't the best at doing or shouldn't be doing. A lot of times the challenge in the financial world, whether it's tax or accounting, is it requires a relationship. It requires some back and forth and connection. And some business owners, if they have the mentality of, well, that's why I pay you, you handle that, I don't have time for that, I can't bring them the kind of value that I potentially could bring without that relationship. As far as kind of size of business, I work with startup to companies in the 10 to 12 million gross annual revenue range. I think beyond that, businesses start to have their own accounting departments. So it's less likely, there's less likely a need for outsourced bookkeeping. So it kind of caps out in that 10 to $15 million range, depending on the industry. I love to work in professional services. I have a lot of experience, as I mentioned before, in the medical field. I prefer solo or small partnerships. I don't have a lot of interest in a 16-member law firm or something like that, where I have to deal with a committee every time we want to make a decision or do something. So I like to keep my business agile and be able to grow and flex as different opportunities and challenges present themselves. So I like to work with typically a solo or two or three person partnership, because we can have those conversations and make decisions and take action.
You know, thinking about, Tulio had mentioned kind of the conscious capitalism approach. And I know part of that with those bigger companies have been like almost like a cap on like CEO salaries and things like that, to try and stay in with that thought of conscious capitalism. How should owners think about profit without feeling selfish when you're thinking about kind of that kind of approach to a more conscious business?
Sure. I think there are a variety of considerations when it comes to that. I mean, I'm still early in my business. I'm not generating the revenue that I ultimately want to for the business. But as I grow, my priority, I mentioned before, I want to make sure my staff is taken care of. I'm paying them appropriately. I think once the obligations are covered and the business owner has the opportunity to think about how to use discretionary dollars, I think becoming as profitable as possible with a mindset of how can I leverage these dollars for the good of my people, the good of the people that I serve, and my family. Ultimately, many people have businesses. Their ultimate purpose, they want to leave a legacy. They're thinking about their kids and their grandchildren. I want to be able to do that. I'd love to grow a business that's profitable enough that when the time comes, I can pay for my grandkids' college. I don't see anything wrong with business owners pursuing profit if they have a mindset of how am I going to use these dollars to make the world a better place. There certainly are people who are thinking more along the lines of bigger and better houses, cars, boats, vacations, etc. I don't think that fits. It doesn't fit my value system. And I think the blissful podcast we're talking about, it probably doesn't fit that value system. But we all agree there are people out there driven along those ways. But my experience has been, particularly with small business owners, they go into business, one, to serve people because they know they can provide a quality product or service, but then secondly, to serve their community, their family, leave a legacy, make a difference, leverage profits for doing good. And I love that. And that's a big part of why I do what I do, because if I can make you successful, and I know you have those kinds of values, then I feel great about contributing to the things that you are contributing to as a successful business owner.
One question we often ask on the show is always some form of this, and you're kind of getting into it with a little bit of that answer. But it's thinking about, kindness and maybe even through the lens of bookkeeping, if you want, but it doesn't have to be. What role should love play in business?
I think love has to be a foundational value. When I think about my own core 30 plus years in various kinds of industries and leadership, my core has always been leadership, learning, and service. And service is a love value. I started my bookkeeping firm not because I love bookkeeping or accounting. I love serving small businesses, and small businesses need help in the accounting arena. I love leading and building and growing a team and growing a business where the culture reflects my values and the things that I care about. And because I love my team and I love my people and I love a healthy workplace and I love freedom and flexibility, I love people having a great opportunity to spend time with their families instead of being at the office. All of that filters out into the culture I'm creating, the business I'm building, the clients that I'm serving, and the leadership opportunities I have around that, and the opportunities to learn, because every client has a new challenge, there's some aspect to their life and their work that's new to me, and I get opportunities to learn. So for me, those are the things I love. I love to lead. I love to serve. I love to learn. I started a business and I am growing this business because it's the context in which I get to do the things that I love to do. And if business owners can do the things that they love to do, whether that's the actual business like practice medicine, or the business is just a context because they love to serve people or solve problems or build systems, I think that love is at the core of all of that.
We had a guest on this show, I think it was either last year or the year before. He was a biologist, and the topic was talking about how power corrupts. It's like a proven fact that when you have too much power, eventually it corrupts even the nicest of people. And sometimes not having too much helps people stay in that purpose of being of service. And sometimes having too much makes people fall trapped to the snares that come with that too. So, it's a tricky one. But if you had
I always push back on the power corrupts I think power reveals ultimately.
Yes,
that's what I think.
That's true. But we naturally, I think, have giving all the power, we naturally levitate towards not always doing the right thing, which is the big struggle, right? So I think sometimes some people, not everybody, but some people,
Mark, like this brings up a good question for Mark. It's like business is doing great. You're showing all these great profits and everything. For you, is this when you kind of try and nudge or push, the client into, hey, we could do better by our people and, this benefit or this benefit, or we could do more of this thing X that you had mentioned a long time ago as being very important to your core beliefs or something. Is that part of like your process, or would you like that to be more part of your process? I'm sure.
I mean, ideally be able to buy the yacht and also help people, but sometimes
right.
choose between the two, right?
Yeah. It's I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a selection, and over time, those kinds of conversations, Stephen, happen probably later. They're not happening in the first year of the
Yeah.
engagement as much as they may be in the 5th or 6th year of the engagement. So there's some maturing that happens for the business, but also in the relationship. I mean, I have a few clients that I would say these people are my friends, and over time, I feel like they've given me permission to speak more directly to the things they say they care about and their values. I mean, for me, I mean, I'm a person of faith. My Christian faith is core and central to who I am and how I live my life and where I spend my time and my money. And I know I have some clients or I have kinship in that regard. And sometimes I become a spiritual director more than a financial director. So I think that comes in with relationship and trust. When you prove yourself to be trustworthy with, let's face it, finances, you're already stepping out there, a business owner, when you trust someone else with your business's finances, because they have the potential to ruin you. They have the potential to help or heal, but also to destroy. And when you prove yourself trustworthy and faithful in this arena of financial management and accounting and accountability, long-term relationships can develop there and it provide opportunities for friendships to develop and these other kinds of conversations about what are you really working for? And do you really need to do this? Isn't this other thing more important to you? Do you want to reflect on that? Can I help you in some way get there? We can have those conversations. I would love to be able to have the freedom to have those conversations. For me, that's where having things like super efficient and effective internal systems where I can spend more of my time in the client management realm, which means just having conversations with my clients. That for me is where the joy really comes into play.
Yeah.
The joy of this business.
It's beautiful. You know, what you focus, what you desire reveals your heart, right? So where, if people want to learn about you, learn more about Telos Bookkeeping, the bookkeeping confidence assessment, you have this assessment that you do. Where should they go? What's a good resource for them?
Sure. My website is Telos, TELOS bookkeeping.com. If you go to telos-books.com, that'll also get you there. And I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Mark N. Tuggle is my LinkedIn. Would love to connect. And I'm not nearly as active posting on LinkedIn as I'd like, but I love to read and interact with the people who connect with me in my network. So website, you can give me a call. You can email me, mark@telos-books.com. Yeah, would love to connect.
Thanks for joining us today. It was a great conversation. Really, interesting dive into trying to be more purposeful in our bookkeeping. And I think with people trying to build these sort of conscious businesses, when you can combine those two, the conscious business, it really does need conscious bookkeeping to really keep it aligned with its purpose. So think about all the ways you can do that, and you can audit your business by your purpose. And we always talk about that, but also that audit certainly goes into your books, and are you backing up what you're kind of hoping to be as a more conscious business? So thanks everyone, and we will see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.